This video was commissioned by the Highland Museum of Childhood with sponsorship from the British Trust to reflect childhood in the Highlands through the reminiscences of local people. Let's meet the people involved. First of all, Ray Brill.
I grew up in Dingwall from a very early age because my parents returned to Dingwall, having spent a good few years abroad in Germany where I was born, as a result of my parents being interned during the First World War. My father actually was a chef to the Kaiser's cousin in Sigmaringen and Hohenzollern.
Doris McIntosh was born in Dingwall, 4 miles from the museum, later moving to Waterloo on the Cromarty Firth.
I was born in Hill House, Dingwall. There were 6 in the family, but only 2 of us born there, myself and my younger brother Seymour. But the first 4 of the family were born in Kincraig. At the weekends, we did a lot of climbing and walking. When we were staying in Waterloo, you see, we had a lovely place by the sea. Everybody liked to come out, swim in the sea. And nobody felt the water cold then, and it can't have been any different as it is today. But you don't find people now bathing in the sea the same, but we did all our lives.
Paddy Newton's family, the MacDonalds, have run the same croft for 4 generations. The croft is on the heights of Fodderty, overlooking Strathpeffer, where Paddy and her family spent all their summer holidays.
My father ran the croft for his father till he was about 29, and then he got an opportunity to go to Aberdeen, to the agricultural college there, and he always kept the croft on because he wanted to somewhere to show us country ways and country activities. So we spent every summer holiday here as children, and we just thought this was paradise. It was lovely to come to, but very primitive, because there was no electricity in the house, no water, no proper road. We spent most of our time outdoors, up the hill. We were all keen on birds and flowers and nature in general. And of course it was an opportunity to indulge ourselves to the full, which we did.
Our 4th contributor is the late Duncan McLennan, whose father was factor, or estate manager, of the Strathconnan estate at the time of Duncan's birth.
I was born in Strathconnan in 1913. Yes, it was a big house. It was the estate office house because my father was a factor there. Belonged to the estate, of course. And it was a beautiful situation, a lovely situation. And in fact, it's such a good situation that the succeeding proprietors bulldozed the house and built their own house on it.
The first outside influence in a child's life was school. Some memories were good, some not so good.
The primary school consisted of the building next to the garage, which was Mackay's garage then. And it was mainly made up of slides. The classrooms were divided by movable panels made of wood and glass. And the other part of the slides was occupied by the secondary school. So you can imagine a long, long building divided up into classrooms by these panels which moved on rollers, therefore called the slides. And then, of course, the unfortunates were housed in the place called the huts, which were corrugated construction, all right in the summer, but perishing in the winter. Actually, the ink and the inkwells would freeze the back seats, roaring fire in the front, and perishing cold at the back. My recollection is that the country pupils who made their way by bicycle or train or bus, they took their piece, as we called it, in a thermos. And then latterly, Miss Cumming provided cocoa, I think it was, or tea. But these children, you'd see them sitting in the seats outside the gym eating the lunch. I think some of them had eaten it at playtime.
And of course in the playtimes we played shinty, even the girls played as well. The shinty clubs were made from alder usually, were homemade, couldn't afford anything else. And if you usually got a branch with a hook on the end, and you cut it away, and you dried it, and you took the bark off it. And you could shape it you could steam it and shape it if you to refine the hook. But apart from that, no other work would need to be done on it. We made our shinty balls from a cork, a whiskey bottle cork, and you wrapped that with string, fine string, until it was reasonably round, and then you covered that up. You rolled that round with wool, knitting wool, and then you stitched the whole thing together with string. It had no covering at all. That was all it was. To play shinty was that was what everybody wanted to do. I mean, it was our only way of getting out of the glen was to play shinty.
Rounders was very popular, and Ketley. Now Ketley is an old word that means, well, it's the same as hopscotch, but we called it Ketley, and it was 6 squares and a semicircle when you were finished, and you had to hop, pushing a stone as you hopped.
The lure of water has always fascinated children, and the area gives ample opportunity for fishing.
We didn't have proper fishing rods, but, could make hooks and worms and bits of stick and things. And they went up to the skiers mostly. And there was also fishing on a loch on the back of the golf course. I think it was called the Cran Loch. There was a little boat there. So they were keen on fishing. I was usually made to row the boat.
Yes, we went fishing. Oh yes, we went fishing. We were very keen on fishing, both my brother and myself. Fishing for trout only. That's all you were allowed to do anyway.
We all had wells for our water, and we used to pride ourselves on knowing every neighbour's well, where it was, and whether we thought it was a good well, whether it was full of water spiders, water boatmen on the top, and who kept a trout in it, because a lot of the old folks thought that a trout in the well kept it clean. I have my reservations about that. We didn't have a trout, I may say. We also had a big water butt to drain water from the barn roof, and we used that mainly for personal washing.
Then, as now, a major highlight of summer was the local Highland Games.
My father was a judge at the Stepper Games. I can always remember that when we came home at night and when we went to bed, because of the constant bagpipe music, you hear the bagpipes going, the sound of the bagpipes going in your ears.
We got our shilling or something, whatever it was, to go down there. And the entrance. We walked down, and I remember my youngest brother and I, we were very keen on the swing boats. I think that was a penny or twopence a time, and we had long sessions on the swing boats. But we did like to watch the dancing and the piping and things very much.
A big thing in the Highlands was, and we were taught in school, the Highland dancing and Highland sling and Highland reels. I remember our gym teacher was a very particular person for getting the movements right and your toes right and your stance right. Of course, it was encouraged that you wore the kilt, and we all wore our own tartan. It was beautiful.
As the season progressed toward winter, Halloween, at the end of October, was an event to be looked forward to by everyone, especially the children, who planned their costumes made up from old clothes weeks in advance.
Halloween was very important indeed, and we looked forward to it. The first thing we did was to scrounge turnip, in our case from Bridgend, and you took spoons and knives and hollowed it out, and cut the eyes and the nose and these fearsome teeth. But when we went around We didn't just hold out our hands for money or oranges or apples. We had to earn it. And we had either to sing or recite or dance. It must have been very amusing to see these ragamuffins dancing about. Or duking for apples. Apples were put in a basin of water, and you had to put your face down and get it with your mouth.
It was a thing for grown-ups as well. Or they used to get up and do terrible pranks. They used to turn the horses round in the stalls, for example, and used to take gates off and hinges and roll carts down into the fields and things of that nature. Oh, Halloween was Halloween was great. It was very, everybody took part in Halloween, I don't know why.
The first snowfall, as always, brought its own pleasure.
We went sledging, and the sledges, of course, were all homemade. Wooden affairs with runners. The experts are the ones who went the fastest, or the ones with the flat runners. The slower sledges had round runners, round arm, supplied and fitted by the local blacksmith. And we polished the runners with emery paper and whatnot. And we went up Mitchell Hill and thundered down that hill. My goodness, how we didn't break our necks, I don't know. And on one occasion, I remember, the bottom wire of a fence had been removed so that one could go under the fence. And unless you kept your head well down, your life quite likely to be scalped. But it was very exciting. It was wonderful, you know, especially in a moonlight night. You could hear these sledges, everything was still. And you could hear these sledges rumbling down the hill.
As today's children look forward to Christmas, Highland children 70 years past would have been largely unaware of its passing, but instead waited for Hogmanay.
Christmas wasn't celebrated in Strathconnell on the whole. People worked, people went to work, and people did things like loading turnips and looking after sheep, and all things would be done that time. They took no note of Christmas. There were no services in the churches.
Well, of course, we had a great time in Hogmanay. We dressed up, and all our friends came in, and we had a drink all round, and it was a great fun evening.
New Year was very much a time for meeting people you hadn't seen for a while, and renewing old friendships and pledging eternal friendship with people.
Up until the last 50 years, the approach of midnight at the changing of the year would be heralded by a rowdy rabble of youths called the Geelan Callan, or Hogmanay Boys. They shouted in the new year to each household and were rewarded with a generous dram. The year ends, and so does a child's play, as peace returns to the Highlands and time